What's up, Chicago? Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Intellectual Radio, ex-cons for Trump. My name is Kata Truss, and I am your co-host. I am the co-host with Tyrone Mohammed. Mr. Tyrone is not with us tonight, but he may be calling in. But we just want to say what's up to the citizens of Chicago. How are you guys doing this evening? So we are here, as you know, to bring the knowledge to the people, to inform people about things that are happening in and around Chicago that affect Chicagoans, whether it be directly or indirectly. We are talking about the subjects that you need to hear about. So tonight, I'm going to start the top of the hour talking about the Chicago Board of Education. We're going to talk about CPS. As you know, there was a board meeting today. There were not really any hot top button topics, with the exception of the fact that you know, or maybe you don't know, that the Board of Education has elected to get rid of or to close or do away with 7 Acero charter schools. And so these are charter schools that are located all over the city of Chicago, but primarily on the south side of Chicago. And it serves our Latino and our Black communities. Now, here's the thing about that, about closing schools. And let me just say, after having come off of COVID, being a person that is currently working as a day-to-day sub in a school, I can tell you that our children have not recovered from COVID. And what I mean by that is our children are really just not prepared for school the way that they ought to be. I think that electronic devices spent more time with our children during the COVID epidemic than humans did. And because of that, our children lack social skills. Our children lack the ability to get along well with others. Our children lack the ability to share and to cooperate. And all of those are tools that our children need in order to be successful in school. And so, because our kids missed so much of their education during the COVID epidemic, and then when they returned to school, they returned beyond the middle of the school year, and then they were all passed on. Now, most of, if you've listened to or looked at the statistics for Chicago public schools and the number of children who are currently able to read and write and do mathematics at grade level, you know that a third of CPS students or Chicago public school students are lagging behind the national norms. And so, with that number being so high, in addition to what was lost during COVID, we know that that is a problem. And so, let me say to the parents who are listening, who have school age children, I need you to take the tablets and the cell phones out of the children's hands and spend the time reinforcing what is being taught in school. Our children are already behind, and so it's all hands on deck. Now, I started off talking about Acero and the charter schools that are going to close. And the reason that is such an issue is because when CPS or the Chicago Board of Education or Mayor Rahm Emanuel decided to close the 50 schools earlier in the 2000s, we saw a large number of students from those closed schools that were lost track of. We don't know if those kids ever showed up at a school. We don't know if those kids left the city and went to another state. The Board of Education has no idea what happened to a large number of those students. And so, what I want to say to the city of Chicago, to our parents, and if you have a child in a zero school and you're listening, hear me when I say it is imperative that you make sure that your child is placed at a school of your choosing. Because here's the thing, we know that the Board of Education right now, or CPS, whether it's CPS, Chicago Board of Education, or Chicago Teachers Union, we know that there is a move to dismember how school choice takes place. But if you're closing a school where my child is attending, then I ought to have a say in where my child goes from this point on. And so, parents, I want you to stand up and fight for your children to have a right, to have a choice to go to a school that is A, in their community, if that's what you want, B, that's going to have quality programs that are going to be beneficial to enhancing the life of your child, and C, at a place with teachers who care, teachers who are there because they love to teach, they want to teach, not people who are there because they want their student loans paid off. That's not what we want. We want teachers in our classrooms who want to be there. We want our kids to be engaging with people who wake up in the morning and say it's going to be a great day because I'm going to educate some children, because that makes a difference. And so, parents that are listening to me now, I want you to really begin paying attention to what your child is doing at school. Look at the homework that comes home. Let me tell you something that I don't know if parents realize this. When teachers give your children homework, and that is work that's supposed to be done at home, homework does two things. The first thing that homework does is that it reinforces what the child is being taught or has been taught. And so it is imperative that you, as the parent, make sure that when that homework comes home, you are going over it with your child, that you are spending the time making sure that those skills are being reinforced, because homework serves as a reinforcement for what your child has already been taught. So if your child is lacking in those skills, if your child has not mastered whatever is being taught, and then they bring homework home and it stays in their book bag because you didn't have time to check it, that's a problem. Not only is it a problem for the teacher, but it's also a problem for your child, and eventually will become a problem for you. Because if your child is not performing on task, that's something that hurts everybody. And so, parents, I need you to become more engaged. I want you to become more engaged in what your kids are doing in school, as well as becoming more engaged in what they're doing at home. It matters. Those of you who have children in pre-K through 5th grade, listen to me. Handwriting is important. It's not just, again, important for the teacher to be able to read your child's legible handwriting, but it's important for your child. They're going to become opportunities and times in their lives when they're going to have to write things and they're going to have to sign their signatures. And it is a shame the fact that kids in the 8th grade are still writing the same way children in the primary grades are writing. That's not okay. And as educators, we do what we can. But parents, we need you to get involved. We need you to have a say in what is happening in your education, in your child's education. Earlier this week, I am a member of the Kids First Chicago Parent Advisory Board. And earlier this week, I participated in a roundtable with other parents where we were talking about some of the problems we are seeing within CPS and how to get CPS or Chicago Public Schools to really listen to and hear the parents. Nothing bothers me more than being in spaces and hearing people talk about what is best for Black families and what is best for Black students and what is best for Black communities without talking to the people from those communities, making decisions for our children without talking to the parents. Parents, let me tell you something. These people who are running this city, who are running Chicago Board of Education, the Chicago Teachers Union, it is apparent that they don't really give a darn what we think. And so it is high time for us to get involved and to start making the decisions that affect our children for ourselves. That was one of the reasons that people like myself and others around the city, throughout the city of Chicago, fought so hard for elected school board. One of the reasons we fought for that elected school board was because we felt that the voices of the parents were not being heard, and we wanted our parents to have a greater voice. Now, the issue with that is that although we got an elected school board, we really did not get to choose from viable parents in a lot of cases. There are some great parents who were elected and will be serving on the elected school board, but there are also some people who are elected primarily because the forces got involved and made sure that their people who were bought and paid for, people who could be controlled, people who were going to not necessarily pay attention to the needs of our students, but to the needs of the people in charge. And at the end of the day, this is really about those of us who have students, who have grandchildren, who have children in school. We want our voices to be heard. We want the voices of the people, of the parents to be heard. And so, one of the things that I want to say to parents is, regardless of who is sitting in those seats at the Board of Education, I need you to get involved. I need your voices to be heard. I need you all to find time to show up at those board meetings, to show up at the meetings at your schools, at your children's schools, to show up for report card pickup, to show up for parent teacher conferences. These teachers, these educators, these principals, these board members, these CTU members, they need to hear from you. They need to hear your voice. They need to know what you think. Another thing I want us to start paying attention to is promotions. Are our children ready to be promoted? Are we sending our children to the next grade without them being really prepared to be there? Let's have some serious conversations about our children. Parents, we got to be honest with ourselves. Nobody knows our children more than we do. You know whether or not your child is ready to be promoted. And if they are not, it is up to you to stand up and to say, my child is not ready to be promoted. And I don't want my little Johnny or my little Becky moved to the next grade if they're not ready to be there. Because that's part of the reason that we only have a third of Chicago Public School System students performing at grade level, whether it's math, science, reading, what have you. Another thing that I want to talk to parents about, talk to the city of Chicago about, and people about, is there is a measure within CPS's within the Chicago Teachers Union contract regarding extended prep time for teachers. I do think that because of the kind of children we are seeing today, because of the issues with social emotional learning, those children with behavior disorders, the number of children that we have who are trauma bound, who come to school with all forms of trauma. I think that because of that, teachers do need more prep time because we're dealing with things that we've never seen before. That being said, that prep time needs to be instructional time for our children. Yes, the teachers may need an extra break, but that is not so that our kids could have more time in gym or more time bouncing a basketball, more time at recess. That time should be spent giving instruction. I think that it is a good idea that Chicago Teachers Union is looking to bring back librarians. I think that taking the librarians out of the schools when they were taken out was a disservice to our children. I think that that is a scheduled time that will be beneficial to our children. Our children will learn once again how to use the library, how to go in, how to look up books, what the Dewey Decimal System is, all of those things that our kids today don't have knowledge of because we don't have library science anymore. And a lot of times when we are seeing cuts being made, we don't think about the ramifications of those cuts until they've been made, and then our students are suffering. And as usual, we're pedaling backwards, trying to play catch up, trying to get our kids where they need to be, trying to find other mechanisms and methods to help our children to learn. Another thing that I would like to see is in Chicago Teachers Union contract, you'll hear a lot of people starting to talk about sustainable community schools, which I am on board with. I think that community schools are a good resource, not just for the school, but for the parents and for the community. I don't necessarily like the fact that CTU or the Chicago Teachers Union is trying to control what organizations are coming into schools. Again, I think that that is something that should be decided by the parents. I think that the community, the parents ought to be working together to come up with an idea as to what programs, what community organizations are going to be coming into our schools. That is something that should be decided by us, not by Chicago Teachers Union. I would like to see parents get involved. I would like to see you use your voice. I would like to see you stand up and fight for quality programs, not just programs that are run by friends of the Chicago Teachers Union. but viable programs that are going to be beneficial to families. That said, I'd like to see sustainable community school programs that are going to be working to educate parents. I don't know how many times I've sat down in recent years to help a student with math and to find out that the way that math is being taught today is vastly different from how it was taught when I was in school. And so, in order for us to be able to really assist our children, we need to be aware of these new methods that parents need to know in order to assist their children. So, I would love to see programs that are going to come into these schools that are not only going to bring services to our students, but are also going to bring services to our parents, programs that are going to educate our parents, programs that are going to teach us how to teach our students, programs that are going to teach us how to figure out where our kids need to be at different grade levels and at different ages. It is a shame that most parents have no idea what a child should know prior to coming into preschool, or what a child should know prior to starting kindergarten, or what a child should know at benchmark grades. What should your child know before they reach the first grade? What should your child know before they reach the second grade? What should your child know prior to going into eighth grade? What skills should they already have? Most parents don't know that in order for your child to really be able to compete to get into some of the better high schools, that it matters. It is imperative that from sixth grade and seventh grade that they have mastered all of the necessary skills for high school, because it is at that time that they will be testing. It is at that time that the high schools will be looking at their scores, looking at where to place them. And oftentimes, parents are not in the know. So we're at the point of eighth grade in November, December, when our kids are selecting high schools, trying to figure out where our kid is going to fall on the food chain. And most people don't realize until you're going through that process that if you haven't dotted your I's and crossed your T's prior to October of eighth grade, again, we're paddling backwards, because now we're trying to play catch up. Now we're making phone calls and we're calling people we know, and we're calling principals, and we're trying to figure out how to get our kids in the best situation, because the ball has been dropped. Because most parents don't realize that the process for preparing for high school starts at sixth grade, not at the beginning of eighth grade, not at the end of seventh grade. It starts at sixth grade. So these are tools that our parents need. These are the kinds of things that we'd like to see sustainable community schools bring in. We want agencies that are going to bring in therapists, agencies that are going to bring in counselors, agencies that are going to bring in social workers, agencies that are going to bring in psychiatrists. Because let me tell you something, we can provide services for our kids during the school day. But if our kids are going back home to a really messed up situation, whatever we do during the day is temporary, because they're going back into that same situation that has caused them the stress, that has caused them to fall behind, that has caused them to come into the classroom and not be prepared to learn. That is why it is so important that our wraparound services meet the needs of families, not just students. And I was at a workshop at Build. Build is a community organization that is here on the west side. I know that they have a beautiful location in the Austin community, but they are inside of schools all over the west side. And I was listening to the director of Build say, no longer can we provide services that are only designed or catering to our youth. We must design programs that are going to cater to families. Hear me, Chicago Board of Education. We must begin developing programs that are going to cater to families, the entire family. Another thing I wanted to talk about tonight is the fact that we must begin to, as not just as educators, not just as community leaders, not just as parents and grandparents, but as a city conglomerate. We must begin to express and stress the importance of parental involvement. I don't know how many of you know that education is only going to be as important to your young person as it is to you. So if you don't consider it to be of utmost importance, neither will your child. It's not just a go to school, get an education because I said so, or go to school and get an education because if you don't, the law is going to come and get me. But it's go to school and get an education because it matters to me that you do that. And with that comes parental involvement. That's a part of showing your child that it is important, of showing your child that it matters. Your involvement, whether or not you are showing up as the parent, whether or not you're taking the time to get knowledge of things that are related to your child's education. And so let me just give you another little nugget. If there's any administrators from Chicago Public Schools that's listening, let me help you a little bit. It's a heck of a lot easier to get parents involved on the ground level. And what I mean by ground level is I mean in primary grades, pre-K and kindergarten, than it is to wait until a child is in fifth or sixth grade and then say to the parent, we need you to get involved. We need you to take a stand. We need you to show your child that their education matters. By that time, it's really too late. So listen to me, Chicago Public Schools. You need to develop a program of some sort that gets parents involved on the ground level, that gets them involved when their children are in kindergarten, pre-K, and even first grade. Once those parents are involved on that level and they realize the importance of it, then it is easier to keep them engaged. And let me just say this. Unfortunately, you can't give them a choice. So you may have to put a mechanism in place by which you say to a parent, in order for your child to participate in this pre-K program, we require you, not we're asking you, but we're requiring you to attend maybe 3 meetings per year. And in those meetings, it will be enrichment. It will be tools that parents need in order to not only get engaged, but to be engaged and to stay engaged. Because, see, when you're doing it, A, on the ground level, B, you're making it mandatory. Now parents have to come Because listen, most of us work, and we don't work because we want to, we work because we have to. And so we need our children in school. We need them in a program that's going to be viable while we're out making the donuts. So you'll get the kids. The key is finding a way to get, keep, and engage the parents. And there's no way to do that without forcing them to do it, unfortunately. Otherwise, you're going to have more of the same. And I know that I've spent a lot of time talking about educational issues. If you have some questions, if you have some comments, if you have some things that you want to add, this is Carter Trust at Intellectual Radio, ex-cons for Trump. Our number in the studio is 708-223-8953. Again, that number is 708-223-8953. We would love to hear from you. Like I said, generally we're here, we're talking about politics for the most part, but as the election is over, you will see us venturing out, discussing other topics, other things that are going on around the city, things that matter. And certainly education, the education of our children is a big deal and it matters. You know, we spent time talking about the budget, talking about what is happening with the city of Chicago and that budget. And we're going to go back to that. But we would be remiss without talking about the Chicago Public Schools budget, talking about what is happening with that, talking about the fact that there are probably going to be more cuts, and talking about the fact that we as educators, as parents, as grandparents, as community leaders, we want to have a say and what those cuts look like. We want to have a say in how money is being spent. We want to have a say in what money comes to our schools and how that money is allocated. These are all issues that matter or should matter to the citizens of Chicago. So again, if you have some questions, comments, problems, something you want to discuss, or if you just in the bushes listening and you want to come out and talk to us, again, the number here is 708-223-8953. I would love to hear from you. Moving right along. The second half of the hour, Mr. Devin Jones will be in. He will be coming in to discuss with us or to help us look at the city budget, which was talked about, discussed in City Hall, and voted on earlier today. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what aldermen voted for what. As I said before, you know, we're going to begin to really start calling some of these aldermen on the carpet. We want to begin looking at bringing in, talking about viable candidates within the city of Chicago who want to run for elected office. Because let me tell you something, this past year, if it has taught us nothing else, it has taught us that we may need to clean house within the city of Chicago, within city council. And so I want us to begin looking at these elected officials, looking at these different offices, looking at who needs to stay and who needs to go. I want you to think about your alderman. I want you to think about whether or not you feel that they've done a good job. Have they effectively represented you? Have your needs been met? Have your voices been heard? If they have not, where did your alderman stand on the migrant crisis? Where did your alderman vote when we were talking about sanctuary cities? We want to talk about those things. We want to hear about those things. We want to know how you felt about it. So we want you to begin thinking about that. We want you to begin making a conscious decision to really think about whether or not we want the same people who have been representing us to remain in office. We're going to take a break. Again, this is Intellectual Radio. I want you to be prepared to call in. That number is 708 223 8953. We'll be back in a minute. What you knocked on the door? Oh, I was in here jamming, huh? I didn't realize that much time had passed. Hey, girl, I'm just gone. I ain't even sure. Hey, you. I was in here getting it, Devin. Huh? Yeah. Look, listen. I talked about the importance of parental involvement. I talked about the education achievement gap within the city of Chicago versus around the country. Some of the tools and mechanisms I think that we need to use in order to get our kids on deck. I think that we need to do away with
I'm being chased by demons that triple team, exposed to false religions. I'm hated by jealous niggas that don't want to see me living my life score from living hope. Pulling up fingers, I'm chasing paper, no hoes more. Peace of mind and yet to find my heart's cold. Got the friends, my last road dog turned me in. Cause the war would never change. It takes the blame for bad decisions. So many missing for following orders. Cause here's giving, got the world tripping. They pushing prison at us young niggas. That's why we haven't had triggers. Won't let this war get us. I'm not alone with the way that I feel. It's like millions out the touching this steel. Roaming the field. I am what I am.
Hey, we are back. This is Kata Trust here on Intellectual Radio. I'm in with my brother Devin Jones. He is going to now come to us and spend a few minutes talking to us about the city budget, talking about what happened today, talking about the vote, preparing y'all to get y'all pocketbooks out. Get your wallet ready to spend the rest of that money that you're going to have to spend on these tax bills that are going up. Let's talk about it. Again, the number here is 708-223-8953. I'm going to let Mr. Devin Jones tell us a little bit about who he is. He is on the station with us now. We're going to take a call real quick, and then Devin's going to jump in. Hello, Intellectual Radio. This is Kata.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Kata. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you? To whom am I speaking?
This is Sister Erica.
Hey, Erica. How are you?
I'm well, sis. I just wanted to call in and make a comment, concerning this budget that they'll be voting on tomorrow. As you said, we need to make a conscious decision about unseating these people and putting in people that will push our agenda, that will work for us, that will listen to us. Because at this point, Brandon Johnson has stole money from the citizens of Chicago, and now he's turning around and want to charge us more money to make up for the money that he's stolen. Now, I'm from the street. We call that something like double jeopardy. You charging me twice for something that you did. So, yeah, I want all of our people to call their alderman's office, although they'll probably be in City Hall tomorrow. Call their office, flood their office phones, and tell them to vote no on that budget. We cannot afford no more property tax increases, period. If we keep letting them do this, we will be pushed out the city. And that's my comment.
Thank you so much, Sister Erica, for calling in. And you are so right. You are so right. We need to take a stand. And you know what? It's late now. but I don't even care. If you have your alderman's number, you need to give them a call. You need to
That's
call
right.
them and you need to let them know that you want them to vote no. And it's like Erica said, flood their offices all morning tomorrow prior to that vote. Actually, I thought it was today. So I'm so glad that you did call and talk to us about that, because we do want people to be aware. And listen, let me just say this also. Not only do we want you to call your alderman, but we also want you to make a note of whether or not you called, if your alderman took the time to vote your interests, and whether or not you're going to support them in these upcoming elections. Because, see, all of this is interconnected. It's interconnected. And so, one of the reasons I got involved with the Republican Party this year is because I felt that my voice was not being heard by my Democratic elected officials. And so I want to say to our listening audience, if they are not listening to us, if they are not voting our self interest, and I mean, when I say our self interest, I mean the self interest of the people, then we need to look at getting rid of them. And that's where I'm at with it. Thank you so much, Erica, for calling in. I appreciate you, sister. Thank you for listening, and keep fighting a good fight. Unfortunately, I can't be at City Hall because I am a day-to-day sub, and I will be in the classroom with some of my little young students. That's how I spend my time these days. But for those of you who are going to represent, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And please don't stop fighting a good fight. Thanks, Erica.
You're welcome. Have a good one, sir.
You too. All right, Mr. Jones, you're up.
I fully, I would be surprised if the budget does not pass tomorrow. I would be very surprised. I don't think that these aldermen are going to let the city shut down. And I think that we are blaming Brandon Johnson. Don't get me wrong. I am not a progressive. I am 100% a conservative and 1000% a Republican. I am a Frederick Douglass dyed in the wool Republican. Okay. I left the Democrat Party back when Obama was the president. I don't think there's any redeeming quality of that party, and that is my opinion. I don't think there's anything to work with in a party that puts white homosexual men over our community. Their ideology is an LGBTQ ideology. It's a big government ideology, and so between big government and LGBTQ, where do we fit in? We don't. We don't have a place there. So hey, people have other opinions, but I am telling you that I what I will not do is continue to grovel in front of people who have continued to disrespect us longer than I've been alive. So the sooner that black people wake up and see that party does not serve them, and that there's wide open spaces in the Republican Party. I didn't say join the Republican Party. You didn't hear me say that, right? I said I am a Republican. I took over the Republican Party in my neighborhood. So I am the leader of the Republican Party in the 18th ward. I don't have nobody over me. And so that's what I would encourage uh black people to do, is to take over the only party in the history of this country that was ever founded for their liberation, to take over that party in their community and stop letting lily white Republicans. I didn't make that up. Google it, Wikipedia, that's a real movement. Stop letting the lily white Republican movement occupy space in an organization that was founded for Black liberation. All of our Black leaders were Republican, at least all the ones that mattered when it came to liberation. So let me go to this budget. Um, they're probably going to pass this budget. And it's not just Brandon Johnson's fault. It's Lori Lightfoot's fault. It's Rahm Emanuel's fault. It's Mayor Daley's fault. Mayor Daley sold the parking meters. We keep saying that, but then we say Brandon Johnson just completely blew a hole in the budget in a year.
Yeah, no.
It ain't just him. This is also J.B. Pritzker's fault. This is also Brandon Johnson can't do anything without the aldermen appropriating the dollars to do it.
That part. Say that again.
Brandon Johnson can't do anything without the aldermen appropriating the dollars and creating ordinances which empower him and ennoble him to do it. And so I don't know why we keep yelling at Brandon Johnson like yo 50 aldermen are sitting right there
50
laying back
with the ability at any point to stop it and to vote against.
So which alderman proposed an ordinance? See, this is how it works. And this is why the Constitution, the state constitution, I'm talking, because now we're in Illinois. So we have a state constitution. I encourage you to go and read the state constitution and then to go and read the municipal code of Chicago, which will tell you how city council works. Your alderman that represents all 56 to 58,000 of you in a ward, right? Plus the migrants or the foreign nationals, they sit there. And Brandon Johnson can say, I'm going to create rainbows and Skittles everywhere. It's going to be rainbows and puppy dogs all over the place. And your alderman can say, no, I have an ordinance that says we're not doing that. And then he can say to the other 49 aldermen, he or she can say to the other 49 aldermen, where's your vote? We don't want puppy dogs and rainbows, right? Our constituents don't want that stuff. Right. And the other 49 aldermen can weigh in. I have never seen the cowardice of this city council to allow him to take the blame. They all share blame. It's 51 people there.
But I think that what's happening is that when you turn on the news, when you turn on the media, and even when we were fighting to save Emerson Park, the onus was really on the mayor.
Yes.
And I think that, we spent so much time talking about the mayor, and a lot of times it's because he's the person in front. He is the leader of the city. He is the one in charge. And so because of that, we will put the onus on him.
Well, this is what happened. The city council appropriated funds and they passed ordinances that allow for Emerson Park and other places to be used in a specific way. His job is the executive. That the key word, see, we learned all this in second grade, right?
Is
to execute. He executes the will of the people as their representatives have already laid it out. So your will through your representatives that you keep electing was to do what they did, not your will, but you understand what I'm saying.
Wait, and so
so I'm saying charge them as much as you charge him.
Let's put the hammer on that nail.
Yes.
And so when I say that let's not just charge this to Brandon Johnson's head, but we must charge it to every single alderman, every alderman that voted to keep sanctuary cities, every alderman that voted to give away the $700 to almost $1 billion to migrants. That wasn't just a Brandon Johnson initiative. We had 50 sitting aldermen who had a vote and could have voted yay or nay, but voted yes. And so while we are spending so much time nailing Brandon Johnson to the cross, we cannot forget the fact that there are 50 people sitting behind him who could have at any point said, my constituents don't want this. The people don't want this. And they did not.
And in our communities, by and large, the aldermanic Black Caucus, save one or two people, voted for these things. They had, it's only now that they see that people are rising up, that you see, this group of 15, some of which are Black aldermen, like my alderman, who never spoke up until now. Now all of a sudden, now we can speak up because you got the cover of the people. No, it is time for, I'm gonna just speak about the aldermanic Black Caucus, because the people on the northwest side their aldermen have always, they by and large do not like this stuff, and they've been voting that way. For the aldermanic Black Caucus, if you can name me one that should stay there, can anybody name one member of the aldermanic Black Caucus that should still sit there after 2027?
You know what? Let me tell you something that was interesting when you talk about the Chicago's Black Caucus. And I spent some time earlier talking about education. Let me tell you what a travesty was. When Janice Jackson informed Mayor Lightfoot that she was going to be leaving and that she was not going to renew her contract, the Hispanic or Latino coalition got together and they sent the mayor a letter letting her know that they wanted to see a Latino in that position. How many letters do you think the Black Caucus sent?
Didn't we have this conversation 2 weeks ago? And I told you that the Hispanic Caucus is offering scholarships, internships.
We did, but I just want to ask you this question. How many letters do you think came from the Black Caucus?
None. Because I've asked my own alderman, what does the aldermanic Black Caucus do other than congratulate each other on a terrible job, congratulate each other on the destruction of a community?
And so it goes to show how organized they are when it comes to promoting things for their people.
Yeah.
And how disorganized,
how they represent their people,
how disinvested, how we underrepresent, or how we are underrepresented by the Chicago Black Caucus.
We are not represented by them. They are there to make a salary. I'm telling you what they're there for. Most of them. They are there to live off the fat of the land,
baby.
And so to me, there's not one of them. I don't care how I keep saying this over and over, and it frustrates me to life that we have to keep saying. I don't care how many parties they come to. I don't care how many turkeys and chickens and hams that they give out. I don't care what any of those people do, especially in the 17 majority Black wards, those specific ones. I don't see one of them. I can't find, in the Bible, who was it? I'm so, my mind is off, but in Sodom and Gomorrah, he was like, "Is there one? Can you find five? Can you find five?
He asked 50? If you could give me one.
Yes,
just man. Wait, I think it started out with 50. And then he couldn't find 50. He was like, well, what about 10?
Yeah.
And then they got, what about 5? And then they got, well, just one. If you could just find me one.
I can't find one.
And he couldn't find one, but God was so merciful.
Yes. To the family.
Yes.
To Lot's, not even to Lot's family. Lot's family was saved by him. And so it's going to take people in their homes. And again, this is also a spiritual thing, but I'm not going to we ain't got enough time for me to even go down the spiritual rabbit hole. And part of that is the reason why Black people are in this situation is because we have relied so much on government to be our savior instead of God to be our savior. But that's a whole nother story. We need to, this budget should not pass. Right. There should not be a budget that the $68 million that they so-called approved for property tax increases was going to happen to you anyway, because there's a mechanism that we allowed
that automatically
automatically
increases
increases.
property taxes
Yep.
with the price of inflation. Also, your city sticker, and I know we got to go. Your city sticker increases with the price of inflation every single year. That's why one year it's $100, the next year it's 105, and you don't understand why it keeps going up.
Mhm.
The stuff was going to happen anyway. If you're watching Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, MGM, any of that stuff, Prime Video, that the price of that's going to go up. If you want to use a plastic bag, that's going from 7 cents to 10 cents, which is why I don't shop in the city of Chicago at all. I would rather drag my stuff out in my hands and get robbed than to pay them 10 cents for a doggone plastic bag. And so the people of Chicago are going to stop have to falling for that. We're going to stop. We have to stop falling for the okie doke and thinking that we done
Yes.
did something. They gave you a $300 million price tag because they knew that it was going to come down to 68 million anyway. So you got tricked, you got hoodwinked, you got bamboozled.
Basically, it was their way of saying, it's that switch and bait. What
Yeah.
is it? Bait and switch.
Yes,
Let's start at
because you're
300,000.
going to be so shocked that you
And
allow
you're
anything.
so shocked that it's 300,000, so that when we go down and ask them for 60, or when we go down and ask them for 100, it's going to be okay because it's not the 300,000.
And look at how we worked for you. We brought it down to 68
We brought it
million.
down. Wait, we did you a favor.
How about you forego your salary until there's an actual balanced budget? What if you did that? Because I know I could live
Because they got an increase
for 2
this
years.
year.
I could off of what an alderman makes. I could live for 2 years.
Yeah, and they voted themselves an
They
increase.
voted themselves a raise.
Yes.
So I don't. Anybody
During
that
the
votes for that
height
budget,
of the
they shouldn't
migrant
be
crisis.
nobody should be reelected. At this point, it doesn't matter what your alderman tells you. If they start voting for the policy that you want them to vote for from now until 2027, I don't care. Vote them out of office, because most of them have been there for 2 terms and they've been voting against your interests for the whole 2 terms.
Anyway.
And so you shouldn't have no confidence that they're going to do the will of the people.
All of a sudden,
they're not going to do it.
Out you.
They're not going to do it.
Well, our time is up. That this is one of the quickest hours of the day for me. I have to say, I want to thank Sister Erica for calling in. And let me just say to our listeners, there are so many things that are going on around and in this city. So many people are being affected adversely by some of the things that are happening. And so if there is something that is happening, a disservice that you feel, an injustice that needs to be discussed, please feel free. Hit my inbox, hit my DMs. My name is Kata Trust. I am here. You can also inbox Tyrone Muhammad or Devin Jones. We are here for Intellectual Radio, ex-cons for Trump. Forgive me. We are working on the name change. Have not got it yet, but it is coming. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week on Tuesday. Peace.
God's gonna trouble water. You ain't got enough money to buy my soul. Ain't strong enough to stop me. I'm out of control. This dimension's a Neo. I know that I know I am.